Just breaking. The lives of thousands of African migrants in Israel once again in limbo this morning. Just a day after announcing a UN deal that would resettle asylum seekers in Western countries like Canada, Israel's Prime Minister has just now canceled the agreement altogether. Derek Stoffel is our Middle East correspondent. He's in Tel Aviv with the breaking news. Good morning, Derek.
Good morning, Heather. Yes, indeed, the lives now uncertainty. There's much more uncertainty now for the lives of some 30,000 African migrants living here. This was quite a day, sort of period, 24 hours of whiplash yesterday. There was a press conference by Benjamin Netanyahu, which he announced a deal where some 16,000 of these migrants, asylum seekers, would go to Western nations. He mentioned Canada as a possibility. And then late at night last night, he on Facebook suspended the deal, and now he has canceled it altogether. Here is the statement from Netanyahu himself. He says, "I have listened carefully to many comments on the agreement. As a result, I weighed the advantages and disadvantages and decided to cancel the deal." Now, we do know the reason why. That's because the agreement, when it was announced yesterday, certainly caught members of his coalition government, including members of his own Likud party, off. They were caught off guard by this, and his education minister said the agreement would allow Israel to become, in his words, an infiltrator's paradise, using the word that many here use for the asylum seekers. And we also know that residents of South Tel Aviv, where a large concentration of the African migrants live, they were very unhappy with this agreement. They simply wanted many of these migrants out of the country, out of their neighborhood, and so they vented their frustration. And today we now see the deal that was reached with the United Nations Refugee Agency. That deal has now been killed, Heather.
So, Derek, as you mentioned, there are 30,000 asylum seekers affected by this. You mentioned the word uncertainty. What, in more detail, does this decision by Netanyahu mean for them, and where might a country like Canada come in?
Well, the big thing is, what will the government of Israel propose to do next? Already under the plans that were backed by the Supreme Court here, the deportations were supposed to begin in and around this period. So the government will have to decide, will it begin to deport some of these African migrants back to Africa? No country was ever officially named, but Rwanda was one place that was considered. And now, will the government go ahead with that? Or some of these migrants, including the men that I've been speaking to over the last couple of months, say they would rather go to an Israeli jail. So certainly a feeling of whiplash. There were celebrations by the migrants yesterday, and today we are already hearing that, deep disappointment as their fate, their futures remain very unclear. And of course, we do not know that, now more will, we've seen some end up in Canada, some Eritreans over the last couple of years, but all this is now certainly very uncertain when it comes to what happens next.
Derek, thank you very much. Derek Stoffel, our Middle East correspondent. He's live in Tel Aviv.